Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
More tired than a buffalo which has been chasing angel delight around a park.
Okay, that's specific, different, but I'm
Yes.
on board. I'm on board. Right, Mr. Matchett, we have two games coming up. We play Tottenham on Thursday night in the second leg of the EFL Cup. And then at the weekend, we play in the FA Cup against Plymouth Argyle. So we'll start with Tottenham. We're going to cover both games today. We'll obviously spend more time on Tottenham than on Plymouth because A, it's a semi-final, and B, we know a lot more about Tottenham. They've had quite the busy week. They end up bringing in Kevin Danzo on loan and Matthias Tell, who they eventually get on a loan with an option to buy at a decent enough price. So congrats to them for that. They didn't get the other centre back they wanted after getting the news that Radu Dragusin is set to miss the rest of the season and probably a good chunk of next season with a torn ACL. They have won a couple of games of late. They managed to beat Elfsborg 3-0 in the Europa League, and then they went to Brentford at the weekend and won 2-0 in the Premier League, their first win in the Premier League since the 15th of December. And that win on the 15th of December was their only win from match week 12 on the 12th of November. So a fairly horrific run of form in the league, but they've been going pretty well in the cups. Obviously, they're ahead in this tie. They've qualified for the round of 16 automatically in the Europa League. They're still in the FA Cup, though. Big game this weekend against Villa. How do you feel about Spurs as we head into this game? Is it one that you're very confident in? Is it one where there's a bit of trepidation? Do you think maybe we get a big performance out of them and we're a little bit flat? How do you see this one going?
So Spurs do usually give me a little trepidation, as you say, but mostly that is because they have a lot of talented attacking players. Um, the defense is not necessarily in much more good shape than it was for the first leg, and really we didn't do enough to test that. I do think that that first leg was, or the scoreline of it was a lot more reflective of what we didn't do rather than what they did do, to be perfectly honest. Um, uh, I'm not concerned by the game other than the fact that we are behind from the first leg in the scoreline, which obviously in and of itself is not just a fairly important thing, but the most important thing, and indeed the only important thing when it comes to a semi-final. So I do think that we are inherently more than capable of beating them fairly comfortably on the night. Goes without saying that we would need a improved performance from that first leg, but generally speaking, our performances have been improved from that first leg. At home, again, plenty of reason to suspect that we'll be not just better, but quite good. And their results are so wildly inconsistent that I do just, it's, I don't want to be cliche and say, oh, you don't know which Tottenham are going to turn up. I do know which Tottenham are going to turn up. They're very good at some stuff and really, really terrible at others. How often they do those terrible things is what they are trying to minimize while they've got so many injury absences, to be honest. So what I would say is that the victories that they have earned, let's say since that victory that you spoke about in mid-December, I don't really place much emphasis on many more than two of them. Ours being the first leg, being the first one, and the win over Brentford at the weekend being the second.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them, I do feel have either mitigating circumstances, irrelevance, or in the case of their 4-3 win over Man United, absolute nonsense about them.
Yeah, what a stupid game of football. Yeah, I mean, look, they beat Tamworth in the FA Cup and it took extra time. We're not going to give them a round of applause for that. They went away to Hoffenheim and they huffed and they puffed and made tougher work of that than they should have. They beat Elfsborg. It took 3 goals in the last 20 minutes. They weren't exactly dynamite in that regard either. So it is just the win over us and the win over Brentford. And we talked about Brentford when we were going there. Like, they're a good team. They're not an elite level team, and they haven't really done well against the top teams. Now, Spurs are not a top team this year. They're 14th in the league, but they still have a lot of good players. They are without a lot of players, though. And much of the discussion around them does need to be couched with the fact of they're missing a ton of players. Solanke's out, Romero's out, Maddison is out, Adoggy's out, Vicario's out. Mickey Van de Ven is just back. But they were missing 3 of their starting 4 defenders, their starting goalkeeper. Bentancur was out for a little while. That's their starting 6, and their starting 10, and their starting 9. Like, let's be honest. You take Alisson, Ibu, Virgil, whichever the left backs, it doesn't really matter. Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and Jota out of the Liverpool team. We're not going to be the same team. Now, we're not going to be 14th, but we might be 4th. You know, we might be 4th if all of those players were to miss an extended period of time, especially if the backups to them also end up getting hurt, which is what happened with them, because Dragusin has missed 2 different runs and now he's out with a torn ACL. So, like, they've been really unlucky with injuries. Really unlucky. And they're missing a ton of players coming into this game. They're hopeful that they'll have Maddison, Adoggy, Vicario, Johnson, and Werner back for the weekend, but not for this one. So the timing of this plays to our favour. But the bottom line of it is, Karl, it shouldn't really matter which Spurs turn up. We're good enough to beat any Spurs. We're just flat out a better team than them. The first leg, as you said, the reason they won was not anything they did. It was our failure to do things. And this will be the same. They will win this tie if we don't play well. If we play well, we will win this tie. Simple as that. They're not good enough to match us at full strength, let alone missing half a team. So it is all on us. And like you said, our performances since that draw have been improved. You know, I said that to you at the time. I felt like even though we were getting results, we were kind of in our wobbly bit, but we were getting the results. And I feel like now we've come out the far side of that and we look a more controlled team again. We're back to being a bit more ruthless defensively. We've looked more like we did at the start of the season, and the results are showing. You know, we've had good results now in the last 3 league matches, and obviously, look, the PSV game you just throw away because it was basically an entire reserve 11, bar Gakpo, who only played because it was PSV Eindhoven and it was his homecoming. So you take nothing from that game. The league is what we can look at. And in the league, we've looked much better the last 3 games. Even though I didn't think against Bournemouth we played all that well, I still think we looked more controlled, more stable, more sure of ourselves. And we never got to the point that we did in say, against Forest or against United, where we started to panic on the ball and try and force things through much. Everything was still quite measured, quite calm. And we just waited for the chances to come to us rather than trying to force them, which we had done for a few weeks.
Well, an early goal always helps there, right?
Yes.
We've not been as diligent about getting the first goal of the game as we perhaps would like to be. We've not always got the early goal or the first half goal even where we would like to be. And I do think that's notable against Bournemouth and against Ipswich when we've scored relatively early on. The performances as a whole have been fairly controlled. I think it's probably the right word there. Measured, serene, whatever you want, but it has been a bit more controlled rather than, I don't know, sometimes if we don't score by half time, yeah, we know we're capable and we can turn up the heat and all the rest of it, but it does tend to get a little bit more, not even frantic, I wouldn't say, just we sometimes overcommit an extra body or whatever trying to get that goal. It does leave us vulnerable to counterattacks and so on. So it's obviously a double-edged sword the longer a game goes on. Goalless, that's fine, but being a bit more forceful from the start. And I think it's a League Cup. It's not going to be comparable to Champions Leagues or anything like that, but we do have pretty good experience still in the squad of needing a result in a second match we don't have to go Barcelona on it, but just general Champions League or European competition terms, second legs, we've at times had to come out and put a performance in and get a result. And we have the team who know how to do that. I think the other side of Spurs, as much as injuries and technical level being lowered, is that they have never had the mentality in their squad now or before, or any recent years, whereby they know how to manage pressure situations. They know how to come out of massive, massive games with the result intact, with the defensive nous and positional work and the work rate, and just not bottling big, big moments, to be perfectly honest. I'm not suggesting that they therefore will do that again, but we have more knowledge of how to deal with those situations than they do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, the last time they were in this situation was in the 2021 season, when they got to the final. They lost to City, but it must be remembered that year the semi-final was one leg. So they played Brentford at home, beat them 2-0. There was no second leg that year. That was under Jose. And there's also the Jose factor of he just knows how to win. Ange has won here, there, and everywhere, but not in the way Jose has. Like, Jose may well be the best second leg manager I've ever seen. Like, just that ability to completely shut down like 90 minutes of football. Like, remember when Inter went to Barcelona and Inter, I think, had a 1-0 lead, or maybe I think it was a 1-0 lead. And it was just everybody expected Barca to wipe the floor with them. And he just completely ruined the game with his tactical setup. Like, Ange is never going to do that. Ange could be 1-0 up with 3 minutes left in a Champions League, down to 9 men, Champions League final, down to 9 men. He's still playing a high line and he's still having his lads go for it. He's never, ever going to have the thought of, maybe we'll just see this one out. So, yeah, he as much as he's won, he's not the type of manager that has that sort of mindset.
We should probably also point out that just for Spurs, Mourinho did win the semi-final and then did not manage the final, of course.
Did not manage the final because he got sacked.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in fairness, if you take a look at that Spurs squad,
I just did. I couldn't believe that how much that's changed.
it's incredible. Like,
Only 4 years.
it's exactly like we're literally 4 years pretty much to the day. Alfie Whiteman is still at the club. Joe Hart and Hugo Lloris have gone. Of the entirety of the defensive group that was there, Sergio Reguilon is still there. He never plays. And Ben Davies is still there. Everyone else is gone. Of the midfield group, I think everybody's gone. Everybody is gone. Literally everybody is gone. Now, they still own Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, but he's out on loan, and the entire rest of the midfield group. And you're looking at a group of 5, 10, 13 players that played at different times of the season, all gone. And in the forwards, it's Son, and they still have Dane Scarlett, and the rest are gone. So you've got Son, Dane Scarlett, Reguilon, who never plays, Whiteman, who doesn't play, and Ben Davies. 5 players out of that entire squad. That's how much changeover they have.
What a wild overhaul.
And Son is the only one that was ever a starter there of that group.
Yeah,
so they've changed 10 of their first 11 and pretty much the entire squad in 4 years.